Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I want to discuss a subject which has been heavily contested ever since the end of the Buu Saga of Dragon Ball Z, and that would have to be the subject of why did Kid Buu emerge at the end as opposed to Evil Buu? So the question here comes down to a number of different factors, particularly why was Kid Buu the final form, or ironically the original form in the Dragon Ball canon, of Buu as opposed to Evil Buu, the one that we saw previously before in the arc, the one that defeated the good or fat Buu and then absorbed him and became Super Buu in the first place. Many people, including my friend Quaman, have contested that this might be in fact a plot hole, and it doesn't really make sense in universe. Now you can actually check out Quaman's video down below in the description. It's one of the videos that inspired me to actually make this one, and it's something that I actually discussed with him and gave him my own perspective in our conversation that I'm actually going to be sharing here right now, because I think that I actually have a good in-universe explanation for why Evil Buu did not emerge and rather Pure or Kid Buu did. So in order for me to explain that, I'm going to be referencing the manga here and going through each of these examples and discussing exactly what I think Kid Buu is compared to Evil Buu and why one appeared as opposed to the other. So let's get into that right now. So of course, for those of you who may not remember, in the Buu Saga, what happened is after Super Buu went and absorbed all of the different Z fighters, Goku and Vegeta transformed into Vegito, beat him down, and then proceeded to actually be absorbed on purpose, going inside of his body, and in turn, finding their friends inside of him. Now, of course, I talked about whether or not this plan actually made any sense and how it worked at all in a video that you could see in the top right corner of this video, which is whether or not that was actually a plot hole. That's not really what I'm focusing on. However, when they were inside of Super Buu, not only did they remove all of their previous friends and family that had been absorbed by Buu and incorporate into his great ultimate power of Buu Han, however, they also found this. Fat Buu, the original one who, as Vegeta said, I watched them from the afterlife, the thin Buu popped out of this fat one, then he turned this one into chocolate and ate him. At that point, Goku asks, maybe the other ones who got turned into chocolate are here too, and Buu responds, nope, he's the only one. Now, after a little bit of a scuffle here, where Kid Buu, or Super Buu rather, has them on the ropes, I'll get into Kid Buu soon, we see that Vegeta decides to rip the fat Buu out of Kid Buu. Now, right before this, we see that Super Buu is freaking out. He's getting really scared, and he's saying, don't cut him out of me, I won't be myself anymore. To which Goku responds, you won't be yourself? How intriguing. So who exactly is Super Buu referring to when he even says himself? Is he referring to the full amalgamated version of the different Buus with their minds together in one? Or is he referring to Evil Buu? That could explain it even more so. But as we saw, what happened is after Vegeta rips him out, Super Buu loses all of his ambiguity, or ambulatory functions, let's say, actually. And I guess ambiguity too, as we're going to get into in a moment. And he starts to freak out. And after they escape from inside of him, what do we see? Well, he starts to regress through the previous forms that Kid Buu had absorbed in the past, turning into, as we could see here, the stronger bulk buff Buu, who is the combination of Buu with the Southern Supreme Kai, who is the most powerful of the at least lower four. And at this point, the Supreme Kai, Kabuto Shin, starts to notice, wait a second, he's going back to the way he was before. Now, in the anime version, they actually expound upon this significantly, where we actually see Kid Buu going around and wiping out the Kais and absorbing the other ones. And as you can see right here, he reverts back into Kid Buu and becomes this version as opposed to Evil Buu. So, of course, as Supreme Kai goes on to elaborate, when Goku and Vegeta are talking shit because they seem to think that they could beat this guy just because he's smaller, which, Vegeta is like, what, 5'2"? Is he really somebody to talk? But anyway, here we go with the explanation of, there were 5 Lords of Lords in my day, which are the name of the manga version of the Supreme Kai. I was the youngest and the weakest, and I escaped with injuries. Well, we all know you're the weakest, Shin, don't worry about that. But as for the other 4, 2 were killed quickly, the gods of the North and West. Then the strongest, the burly god of the South, Harold's favorite, was the next to go. And Buu turned that muscle man we just saw, right? Yep. The next to be absorbed was the chubby but gentle Great Lord of Lords, the Daikaioshin, as it were, the God of Gods. Before this, Buu was pure evil, a failure that Bibbidi himself couldn't handle. But afterward, he calmed down to the point of Bibbidi being able to control him. So the souls he ate tamed him. Then the small Buu is the very first, most difficult one. Yes, he's lost the soul that he gained. This Buu is evil incarnate. But wait a second, if this Buu is evil incarnate and immediately goes to blow up the earth just to prove that, then what about this Buu right here? After all, wasn't this the evil Buu, the gray Buu that we saw? I mean, isn't he called Evil Buu after all by most people? Shouldn't he have been the one to emerge instead of Kid Buu, as we see right eventually on my screen as I actually pull that up and show everyone? Right here. How does it make sense for this Buu to appear, but not for this one? Is that a plot hole? Well, I don't quite think so. Now let's actually go back to the chapter where Evil Buu emerges for the first time, and we see exactly what transpired. So, as we know, right after Kid Buu, or Fat Buu in this case, is becoming friends with Mr. Satan, Hercule, as a lot of people like to call him, based upon the English dub and the censorship therein, what ended up happening was that their dog, B, was shot by these horrible people who were taking advantage of the apocalypse and going out and shooting people and having fun and trying to make themselves seem like the altruistic heroes by taking out Buu. Instead, they shoot his little puppy, which is really a horrible thing to go. I mean, if John Wick was there, they would have been dead in an instant. Maybe not 5 like it took for Buu. But either way, what we end up seeing is that Hercule goes in action, beats them down, and then in turn, when everyone's celebrating his victory by beating up these chumps, what ends up happening? Well, he's shot from behind. Now, Mr. Satan is able to be healed by Buu with his magical powers, but it's too late. He's already on the verge of breaking when B gets shot, and now he's on the verge of breaking that much more. Because of the contradiction within himself after Hercule, Mr. Satan, had helped him to become a good guy, to give up on killing, to become a positive figure in the world, as opposed to this monster who is told to destroy, to wipe out. Basically kind of like Frankenstein's monster taken to the next extreme, which Toriyama is a big fan of kind of taking that trope and utilizing it time and time again with a number of the different figures that we see throughout the story. At this point, because of that, Buu shoots his evil energy, his smoke, up into the sky. And what happens, just like when Buu hatched from that shell at the beginning of the arc, or, somewhat near that, what ends up happening? Well, another one formed above. And it's interesting that we see Piccolo watching this, and it's even more elaborated on in the anime version, but this is very similar to what happened to this particular character here hundreds of years ago when the nameless Namekian, as we like to call him, I'm sure he had a name at some point that his dad gave him, but I'm sure we'll never know, ended up splitting into two, a good one, Kami, and the bad one, King Piccolo. So as we see that happens here, the evil that is within the Fat Buu ends up spawning and becoming Gray Buu or Evil Buu, as we see here. And honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I really like the design of Evil Buu. This might actually be my favorite design of any of the Buus, which I know a lot of people, some people might not like his character, but for me, he almost looks like an evil earthworm Jim or something like that. He looks really cool. I love how, thin he is, scrawny he is, how sunken his face is. If Buu is supposed to have bones, well, you could certainly see a lot of those bones in him. And he immediately goes down, and what does he do? Well, he acts as the revenge physically manifested for Buu and proceeds to obliterate this guy. And like I've talked about, the manga could be a lot more violent than the anime, because just look at what happens to this guy's face. There's not much left of him after this, is there? And not much left of that entire area either, because he just goes, blows that all away, like the mother of all bombs right there. He then proceeds to skip and hop right up to this Buu, the Fat Buu, and as you could see, he makes Fat Buu look like a manlet by comparison. He was already pretty tall, and the two of them proceed to fight. However, the evil within Buu is actually stronger. And there's actually certain things that the narrative gives us right here. For example, the narrator, which is Toriyama, as far as we know, Buu's anger swelled up within him until it popped out as another body. He was split into the sweet Buu and the Buu of pure wrath. And as we could see later on, as it says right here, alas, sweetness stands little chance against concentrated wrath. And at this point, we see the downfall and defeat of Fat Buu because he goes to turn this one into chocolate. But whether or not it's because he's magical himself, or maybe his breath is just that strong, he is able to blow away that beam, hit Buu directly, turning him into a chocolate piece as well. At this point, he gets eaten and turned into sustenance to power the perfect form, now that's the previous arc, of this Buu. And guess what happens? Well, he transforms one more time as he's able to now take all of the true power that was within Buu and then turn his body into the most strongest form that he can, compressing it, making it taller, making it sleeker, making it faster, stronger, and bring out his power to the maximum, which is why it multiplies significantly when he becomes Super Buu. And his design I think is pretty cool looking too. In terms of just look how evil he looks, especially in this panel right here as he starts to freak out. And then it leads to one of the greatest death scenes that we see in the Dragon Ball franchise, which I'll now cut to right now, where Super Buu actually goes to that other hunter and jumps right into his body like a liquid, inflates him ridiculously, kind of like what we saw happen earlier in the arc with, I believe it was Spopovich when Babidi did this, and blows him up from the inside, which is a pretty amazing death, and that's certainly one of the highlights of the Buu Saga for me. However, as we could see when Buu shows up to try and attack Mr. Satan, he doesn't do so because of the fact that he recognizes him, and there's still the influence of the good Fat Buu right in his brain. So what exactly happened here with the evil Gray Buu that is different from what happened with the Kid Buu at the very end? Well, I think it's pretty clear. Just look at both their designs. Just look at the one on the right, who is the one that initiated this in the first place. So originally what happened here is that instead of spawning another Buu directly from his body, what ended up happening was one of the Buus was rather ripped out of Super Buu, the one that contained all of the Kais within himself. As far as we know, we don't really know what happens to South Kai, but it could be assumed that both the Dai Kaioshin and Southern Kaioshin are both present within Fat Buu. And so when they're ripped out of him, they no longer have that connection to Buu, which means that they no longer are having any influence on him whatsoever, and thus he's able to regress back to the initial form that existed before anything was absorbed within to him, which is here pure Buu, Kid Buu as we like to call him, which is called pure Buu, pure evil Buu, the truest essence of who Buu is. However, when Fat Buu spawns Evil Buu, he's spawning the evil version of the entire amalgamated form that is Buu. In other words, this is the evil spawn, the evil half of Buu with the Dai Kaioshin, the Southern Kai, absorbed within him as well. So as a result, this is not Kid Buu. This is just the evil variation, the evil form of the godly form of Buu that we see here, the tame one, the one that has the gods within him, rather than being the true pure evil Buu itself. This is more like King Piccolo, whereas the evil Buu would be, or the original Buu, pure Buu, would be more like the nameless Namekian. So for example, it'd basically be like instead of, the two of them splitting and then reuniting normally with Piccolo, what ended up happening was that Piccolo ate Kami and then transformed his body into an evil version of him, with all of their stuff combined together, as opposed to them reuniting together normally through the traditional reuniting and becoming the amped up kind of Piccolo that we see. So again, in this case, I don't believe it's a plot hole, and rather, this is just another version of Buu that we see that's an evil offshoot of the Fat Buu with all of the combinations within him, as opposed to being the true pure evil essence of Buu, which is the true pure Buu or Kid Buu that we see right here. And I think that ultimately is the reason why that happens in the story and why we end up getting so many different forms of Buu. Of course, that's all in universe. Out of universe, it seems more like Toriyama just didn't know how to end his own story, kept coming up with different things here and there. Super Saiyan 3 Goku, now Ultimate Gohan's gonna beat him. Gotenks is gonna beat him. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Now Vegeta's gonna beat him. Doubly just kidding. Or, doubly. I don't know. They multiply way more than twice. I'll definitely say that with their power level. And finally, we got to give it to Goku. But we don't. We got to give it to the Spirit Bomb with Goku and Vegeta and everyone on the planet coming together, defeating him. And then Toriyama just erases all their memories. But another little piece of information that actually ties into all of what I'm saying right now is what happens at the very end of the arc. That also kind of helps to serve as even further information about this. Because after they defeat Kid Buu, what do we see right here? Well, the fat Buu still exists, but he is more of the good Buu, the good essence that was left over. Just because Kid Buu was obliterated doesn't mean this amalgamation of the Buu, DNA, magical DNA with the Kais together does not still exist. And at that point, they ask, Mr. Satan asks for them to heal him. And then what happens here is that Vegeta doesn't want to. He wants to wipe him out. And what Vegeta says is, what if he creates another one of those monsters? That really will be the end of the world. Now step aside. He wants to kill him, to obliterate him completely, to eliminate the threat of Fat Buu creating yet another evil Buu. So again, that means that the creation of this Buu right here is not predicated on the existence or the presence of this Buu right here. Rather, it's if there's enough evil that builds up within Fat Buu that needs to be expelled and take on a form, which is this, which again does not even require the presence of Kid Buu at all within him. So that is why I believe that Kid Buu spawned from Super Buu or regressed back from Super Buu at the end of the Buu Saga, as opposed to turning back into Evil Buu. Again, in terms of the narrative aspect, you could argue that perhaps the reason why this happened is because Toriyama wanted to have a different final form for Goku and the others to face off against, to defeat, and he decided that it would be more interesting for him to regress back into an original state, kind of like what happened with Frieza, as opposed to somehow taking on a different form that we saw before and, kind of making it stand apart and separate from everything before and still have a kind of sense of progression or degression in this case, especially considering we do have the previous main character coming back to defeat him in the story. So overall, I don't really think this is a plot hole, but maybe you can argue down below in the comments and let me know if that's the case or not. What do you think happened? Do you agree with my position here? Do you agree more with the aspect or the opinion that this actually is a plot hole? It doesn't really add up, doesn't really make sense. At the end of the day, Dragon Ball is certainly full of plot holes. I talked about many of them, including one you could also see up here again that is talked about recently, revolving the biggest plot holes, the Cell Saga. So check that out. Also, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stick around for a lot more to come in the future. Check out Kwaman's video down below in the description, and I will talk to you all later.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.